They sent a contract. I said yes. And now he gets his chance to fight the lineal heavyweight champion of the world. My promise is, I got me rounds here tonight, 10 rounds. But one thing I promise when I go to Las Vegas is I'm knocking you the fuck out, boom.
We're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you will do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, people like that get slapped.
Next year, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? I want smoke.
Yes. Another daily edition of Mixed Combat Radio. Call in live 323-870-4051 or internationally. Email me, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com, and you can get an international link. But it is the daily show where we cover all things boxing, MMA, and everything in between. It's going to be a fun time. I'm Matt, the hipster hunter. Hipsters here, haters beware. And it's basically review time. Obviously, Mondays usually our review if you're new to the show. Wednesdays our preview show. So any content or you want to see of the weekend's action coming up, you have to wait till Wednesday. But all the action this last weekend is today. So obviously Carl Frampton versus Luke Jackson, Tyson Fury versus Pianeta, and obviously the Deontay Wilder announcement. Top Rank on ESPN with Bryant Jennings, Shakur Stevenson, Jesse Hart, etc. Akira Yagashi making a strong case for round of the year over in Japan, which we might talk about a little bit. And obviously UFC 229 already being the second highest gate in UFC history. Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov already setting records. So can't wait to talk about that one as well. But let's get into it. Before I do, obviously, hit the like button, subscribe, share the show, all that YouTube stuff, get out of the way. Podcast form on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Santiago, Real Nija, Rabisky, Aaron Munoz, Johnny. Go check out Johnny on SoundCloud. I believe his music's on iTunes as well, I want to say. He can probably correct me on that, but go check out his music. Some great stuff that's come out recently. Kyle in the chat, one of our social media directors, and Bayside Boxing. Already sending shots at Rob, so it should be a fun, lit show. Where should we start? Should we start with the whole Tyson Fury, the whole Deontay Wilder situation? I think we should, even though that's not the main event, even though that really isn't the marquee. I shouldn't say the marquee. It wasn't the headline. It wasn't prime time in the U.S. I'm still a U.S. Basically a U.S. Mainly. The audio is lagging a bit behind the audio. Interesting. I can try to fix that. Let me see if I can do that very quickly before I delve into this stuff. Boom. Sorry about this, people. It should be working fine now. If it's not, let me know, the prospect. It was a connection issue, but it should be fixed now. Anyways, digressing. Dwayne saying, what's good, man? What's good, Dwayne? And Jonathan Fitch in the chat. But let's digress, obviously, to what we were talking about. Get back in order. Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury being announced, being official, Showtime pay-per-view, BT Sports pay-per-view. Should we even talk about the Francesco Pianeta fight? Because I don't know what really is there to talk about. I believe that it was obviously a market improvement from his last fight. It was obviously a more fit, more athletic, more just dialed in Tyson Fury. Like, that was obvious. It was a better performance in almost every regard than the Zephyr fight, Zephyr Safari or whatever his name is. But still, I think we can be objective here and go, wow, that was a marketed improvement from his last fight. And obviously, he dropped like 20 pounds since that last fight. And he still has 4 months to go till the idea of the Tyson Fury fight. The idea that he should be fine athletically. I don't know. What the Tyson Fury that I saw last night, in my opinion, gets chin checked by a lot of guys in this heavyweight division. The Joseph Parkers of the world can hurt him, I think, even. The Dylan Whites, the Jared Millers, they beat this version of Tyson Fury, let alone the Luis Ortiz, the Wilders, the Joshuas, the Povetkins. So I'm not sold on it competitively in terms of Wilder Fury. I'm not. I'm just being honest. I know there's people out there that are definitely being the drum of that this is a competitive fight, that Tyson Fury is this great boxer. They're already, clipping, obviously, him and Ali together, and that's downright disrespectful, and we all know that. But I don't know why people in the media, people I truly respect in the media, are going along with this. Like, you cannot tell me that version of Tyson Fury along the ropes getting hit. Let's not forget that he did get hit sometimes by Pianeta. Doesn't get rocked and destroyed by a right hand from Deontay Wilder. We really don't see that happening. A guy that Tyson Fury who throws the pity-pat of pity-pat shots we've ever seen. He's Paulie of the heavyweight division in a sense in terms of power. So I really am not sold on it competitively. But in terms of outside that, in terms of just the overall ability to sell this matchup, I don't think Saturday night was the greatest moment. Like, it wasn't the super climatic moment. Matt, weren't you the one harping on about the media needing to push promoters for best versus best? This simply isn't it. Tyson needs 2 to 3 more fights before going for Wilder, in my honest opinion. No, I agree. If I've not said it before, I'll say it now. Dylan White, Gerald Miller, maybe even some other names, maybe even like a Trezor at this point, are competitively more interesting fights for Deontay Wilder. And I shouldn't say and. But I think the ship is completely set sail on Wilder Fury happening. They see the dollar signs behind it. I think the media has given up on criticizing this matchup. And me over here yelling, to the void that this fight isn't competitive, which I've done this entire show thus far, it doesn't achieve that much, in my opinion. If there was a greater sense in the media that I have about them being a little bit indifferent to this matchup, then maybe I would push a little bit more to not have this fight happen. But it's already here. The fight's official, even though we don't have a date and venue. And let's be honest, it's going to be in Las Vegas. It's going to be in the T-Mobile Arena in November or December. It's going to be pay-per-view. The most I can do here is just say that's not competitive. And I can shit on that anticlimactic post-fight bullshit that they had in the ring, because that wasn't fun. The one they had to begin with was fun. And on our Patreon-only show, Championship Rounds, shout out to, obviously, everyone on Patreon, Mixed Combat Radio, patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. Go check it out. Go support. somebody posed the question of, does the friendship of Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, which is so blatantly obvious, does that affect the build-up to this fight? Most likely, yes. I would probably say it does affect it, at least for us hardcores. I think we know what's up. We know that this is just a money grab. Even Tyson Fury, I think, said in the media that he would wish he has a couple more fights. But it is what it is, sort of thing. And we're here. Like we're in the day where it's Wilder, Tyson Fury on pay-per-view, and it wasn't 2 years ago. You know, if this was 2 years ago, it'd be a completely different story, but it isn't. It's 2018. Tyson Fury has been coming off of a 100+ pound weight loss, and he still doesn't look that good. And I think overall, the romanticization of Tyson Fury, even back then in 2015, 2014, is grossly overstated by the media and fans. Go back and watch the Tyson Fury fights back in the day. It's not like this guy was a world beater in that sense. It wasn't like we thought he was going to be destined for greatness. We didn't. We did not think that. And him winning a very controversial and just overall awful fight against Vladimir Klitschko has now propelled him into comparisons to Muhammad Ali, which, God, is just fucking disrespectful. It's awful. Nigel, by the way, just so you know, the international phone line that you use for the Championship Rounds podcast, that is still the open line. That's the permanent line for international callers. Again, if you're international and want to talk about, obviously, this UK topic, this UK news, email me, mixedhighlightradio@gmail.com. If you want to call domestically, 323-870-4051. But let's move off of that. I mean, I think, let me know in the comment section below in the chat, are you sold on Fury Wilder or Wilder Fury? Like, does the lack of competitiveness in this matchup ruin the build and the hype for it, in your guys' opinion? But yes, let's move off of it. Let's move to the actual main event of that card. Carl Frampton defeating Luke Jackson via TKO in the 9th round with the corner throwing in the towel. I have a few points about the actual fight itself, and then obviously the Frampton-Warrington fight, which we'll get to. I thought Luke Jackson had nothing for Frampton. He really did not. He didn't have the skills for it. He didn't have the power for it. He didn't have the size for it. He had literally no advantage in any category over Carl Frampton. And after the first, I would say, 2 or 3 rounds, after Frampton was boxing very well, you could tell that he realized that Jackson wasn't doing anything, that Jackson wasn't really having any power and couldn't really box with him. Even in the phone booth, they decided, okay, I'm going to go for this knockout. And we saw Frampton even eat some shots that he shouldn't have, and that's sort of been a thread throughout his career, that he gets sucked into fights he should not be fighting. He cannot stick to a game plan. But to table that, he obviously outclassed and bullied Luke Jackson around. A guy that probably should not have been in this fight to begin with, but it is what it is. Now it's obviously set up that he's going to fight Josh Warrington in a pay-per-view on BT Sports. And I believe it is a separate pay-per-view than obviously the Tyson Fury-Deontay Wilder fight, because that is in the U.S. Even if they were to do like a dual-site simulcast sort of thing, I don't think they do it. That would just make 0 sense. So I'm hyped on that fight. I think Frampton-Warrington's a fantastic Fight of the Year contender on paper. I think it's a hard fight for Frampton. I just see him getting, again, sucked into fights he shouldn't be fighting, and Warrington in the pocket is a brutal guy at that weight class. Brutal. Very few guys at 126 pounds works the body, works the inside game like that at featherweight with that, I'm not going to say like power, but that bruising factor. Because even like when Leo does it, Leo Santa Cruz, it's much more of a, there's not that like authority with the punches. It's amazing punch selection and punch volume, but there's not really that power behind it, that force behind it. Warrington has that in spades. I think it's a tough fight for Frampton. I think it's a potential fight to put Warrington over against a name like Carl Frampton, and interesting to see what the pay-per-view buys are for that event, for sure. And speaking of pay-per-view, before I head into the Cristofer Rosales Paddy Barnes fight, interesting to note how the pay-per-view paradigm has changed. I forget what the metrics are, but the amount of pay-per-views, let's say 5 years ago in the U.S. was X number, and in the UK it was Y, and now it's the inverse. Now the U.S. has Y, which is less than X, and the UK has X. The UK has 10 pay-per-view events this year. Yeah, welcome to the pay-per-view era, UK. Get hyped. Get hyped for that, that's for sure. Wow, prospects saying Frampton Warrington is the only pay-per-view I'm buying this year, bar the Canelo Triple G one. Interesting. Shout out to streaming. But Cristofer Rosales knocking out Paddy Barnes with a vicious shot to the solar plex. I'll be honest, I didn't want to say this, but I told you so. Like, everyone out there that was like screaming the Paddy Barnes bandwagon, being a bronze medalist, I think a 2-time bronze medalist in the Olympics. Obviously having, I think, the athletic advantage, having the hand speed advantage, but he did not have the style advantage. Styles make fights. I know that's one of the oldest terms thrown out there and phrases thrown out there. It's definitely... Sorry, Boxing Blunt saying, Matt, I live in Leeds. It's the third biggest city in the UK. We only have Warrington. He has a city behind him like no other fighter has. That's for sure. He definitely does. Prospect saying, yes, shout out to streaming. That is true. That was great. But, sorry, digressing back to Rosales Barnes. I told you so. Barnes did not have the style matchup to really beat Rosales. He's a guy that wants to be on the inside, throwing combinations and volume. And while he's, I think, the overall better technical guy at it than Rosales, Rosales is the bigger guy at it. He's the heavier hitter. He's the more experienced guy in it, especially at the pros. I think that's a huge factor here. Because Paddy Barnes, when he did decide to sort of dart in and out and stick to, 2s and 3s, was reserved with this overall tactics, he was effective. But he did that so little that, it is what it is. And I just see that I'm not going to say Barnes doesn't really compete at this level. I think he can. But he's going to have to figure out how to be able to stick to a strategy. Because at his height, his weight, and I think his overall style, he's not going to do that great at flyweight. I think a lot of guys can rough him up. And at the very elite, he will struggle. Unless he can stick to a game plan. And then it's open field for him. Because I think Barnes athletically is skilled. His hand speed is phenomenal. His technique is amazing. But it is the idea that he wants to be on the inside in the phone booth brawling with guys that hurts him. Is what it is. Boxing Blunt saying, my prediction was Barnes. I seen Rosales lose to Andrew Selby, and I underrated him. Have to remember, Andrew Selby is a much better boxer when it comes to game planning. Being able to stick to a game plan and a style. And honestly, he just had a worse style for Rosales than Barnes. Barnes just Rosales was the worst style matchup for Barnes probably in the division for him, and he took it at 5-0. Is what it is. Moving on, though, to the top-ranked card over in the U.S. Headlined by Bryant Jennings versus Alexander Dimitrenko. Co-headlined by Jesse Hart versus Mike Gavronski. I can't wait to talk about that one. And Shakur Stevenson and Jason Sosa be on the card as well. They both picked up wins. I'm not going to talk about those guys as much. I will talk about it a little bit on the tail end. But Bryant Jennings versus Alexander Dimitrenko. I want to be nice here. I don't want to be rude here and disrespectful. Because I kind of was on Twitter. If I start naming heavyweights, please somebody leave a comment below whatever it is on if I'm wrong here. These are the names I think beats Bryant Jennings. Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Povetkin, Luis Ortiz, Tyson Fury, Fury, Joseph Parker, Dylan White, Gerald Miller, maybe even Derek Chisora, Carlos Takam. Like, I can keep going here where I think Bryant Jennings probably doesn't win these matchups. And I'm not saying that Jennings shouldn't be at this position in terms of headlining events, but he kind of shouldn't. In my opinion, I just, when you look at a guy like in the main event with Jesse Hart, which we'll get to, that's a guy you put money behind. That's a guy you put headline money around, in my opinion. Not Bryant Jennings. I think Bryant Jennings is decent in a lot of categories. Has, I'm not going to say decent power. He has mediocre power at heavyweight. But decent boxing skills. But he's small for the weight class. Overall, pretty light for the weight class. Squares up too often. Gets sucked into brawls. Can't stick to a game plan to save his life. I'm not going to say kind of chinny, but he can get hurt. And we've seen that not only with Luis Ortiz, but with Dimitrenko, who knocked him down, I think it was in the 4th round. So he can be hurt. We don't think guys like Dylan White knocks out Bryant Jennings in devastating fashion at some point. Hell, even guys like Joseph Parker, we don't think he at least outboxes Bryant Jennings. Again, I don't know what you do with a guy like him. I don't know if you keep him in this sort of scene where he's these sort of like off-card headliners in Atlantic City, where your overhead's really low, so you don't worry about like losing money. I don't know what the thought process is here. I don't at all. I thought he looked kind of mediocre in this win. Got gifted a very early stoppage in, I think it was the 9th round after knocking down Dimitrenko twice. It is what it is. I think Jennings, I don't know if in terms of like you cash him out. I think that's kind of a rude, disrespectful term, but I don't know. I really don't. I don't see Bryant Jennings as an elite heavyweight at this point, to be quite honest. I think that's kind of harsh to say, but I think it's the truth. Moving on to maybe a guy that is truly elite, though. Jesse Hart in the main event, defeating Mike Gavronski in devastating, dominating, vicious fashion under 3 rounds, knocking him down several times. Obviously, Gavronski wasn't that guy for Jesse Hart. It wasn't a credible opponent for him. I forget who I had this debate with in the chat. I want to say it was Bayside Boxing or Bomani. I forget who. But someone pushed back on that, saying Gavronski was a good opponent for Jesse Hart. He obviously wasn't. But what you can see with this sort of showcase win with Jesse Hart is that him athletically, in terms of putting punches together and those power, devastating punches together, he might be one of the most dangerous, underrated guys at 168 pounds. Like I might pick him. I'll probably go on the ledge here right now. I would pick him against Gilberto Ramirez in a rematch. I think he has looked better every fight out since then. And that loss has done him nothing but wonders. I think he's learned a lot from it. Him against George Groves, Callum Smith, Chris Eubank. I think he beats all those guys over in the UK. Guys like David Benavidez. I think that's a very tough fight, obviously, for Jesse Hart. But Jesse Hart could beat David Benavidez. And even then at 175, if he moves up, which he probably will because he's a gigantic super middleweight, he might do wonders there. I think he's a better overall package than Marcus Brown, potentially. And maybe I might be a little bit hyperbolic off of this showcase win, but Jesse Hart is one of the most elite guys in this division that gets no push, that gets no shine at all, not only from the media, but from his own promoter, it seems. And that's unfortunate. I think he looked fantastic. I think he had probably the best performance of the weekend out of all the events, to be honest. Lord Jacob in the chat just typing out Queen, ... I think he's talking about the Nicki Minaj album. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that trash album. Digressing, Jason Sosa defeating Ronaldo Blanco via unanimous decision. This fight was not televised, and it was a post-limb after the main event. rather unfortunate for Jason Sosa. Shakur Stevenson, though, was shown. I'll put it this way, and this has been echoed by a lot of people in the media, is that he is seemingly having a hard time switching that mindset from I'm boxing, I'm counter punching him, I'm keeping my distance, working the outside game, to I'm a press on the gas pedal, go to fourth gear, and get this motherfucker out of here. Which I think he could have done against Carlos Ruiz. He obviously had nothing for Shakur Stevenson. Oh, Lord. Okay, now I get what you're talking about, Lord Jacob. That was funny. But I just think Shakur Stevenson can do better. I know that might be a little bit harsh because he won every round. He dominated Carlos Ruiz. But he was content with going rounds. And I felt like he is the type of guy that he needs to start putting on some emphatic knockout wins to get this hype train going, in my opinion. But again, won every round. He boxed beautifully, but I think he could have done more, to be honest. Last event we're going to talk about for boxing before we head into the news of the day. And it's only really two fights I'm going to talk about over in Japan. Satoshi Shimizu versus Shingo Kawami. Fantastic fight. Shimizu. Anthony Walker saying, damn, I was secretly hoping for a hipster dramatic reading of Nicki Minaj's tweets. I ain't reading that shit, man. No, I'm Team Safari all the way. Okay? Yo, Nicki Minaj had a better album. I'll put it this way. Beyonce rapped better than Nicki Minaj. And I also add this. Her, on her, not even a mixtape, I think it was like an EP or something like that she released a week ago. She rapped on a track better than Nicki's entire album. So, I'm good with that. Sorry, Anthony. Anthony, you got to get in the studio, man. It's all done, by the way. Anyways, digressing. Shimizu, a guy that beat Isaac Dogbe in the Olympics to win a bronze medal. He lost to Luke Campbell, though, also. A guy that has some real Olympic amateur pedigree. Isaac Dogbe, also, speaking of him, fighting this week. We're going to talk about his fight, obviously, on Wednesday. Speaking of that, Shimizu got a TKO in the fourth round. Looked fantastic doing it. Definitely go watch that fight. It's on YouTube. It's on Daily Motion. It's on all of those platforms. You can find it. Real Nice just saying, wow, Matt's hating on Nikki. Come on, man. I'm Team Cardi. Is that even a question? Akira Higashi and Hirofi. God, I'm going to fuck up this name. Stay with me here. Horifumi Muaki. Morkai. I don't know. Anyways, that was a fucking fantastic fight. Akira Higashi, one of the best flyweights, super flyweights. Lord, I'm happy you guys are talking about this during like the Japanese boxing segment where I'm not going to clip this. Like, nobody cares. Let's be honest. Lord Jacob saying, I don't want to hear Matt's Nicki Minaj impersonation. You don't, or do you? Come on. I might do that after the show in the caller section. Remember, call in 323-870-4051. Or if you're international, email me, mixcombatradio@gmail.com. I'll get you an international call-in link absolutely free. It's a permanent link, so once you get this link, you can call in anytime internationally. Nigel, Rob, some others have that link, just to give you guys a heads up. But Higashi, one of the, he might be a Hall of Famer. He's on that borderline for me because he has, unfortunately, quite a few losses against really top competition, which will be Hall of Famers like Roman Gonzalez, for example, which was a fantastic fight. Ooh, some years ago now. Go check out that fight if you haven't yet. But Akira Higashi and Morkai put in a round of the year contender in round 6. Higashi got a TKO in the round following that. Go check it out. Amazing fight. Anthony said I definitely want to hear that. Classic in the making. I might do it. Peer pressure is a motherfucker. But let's get to the news of the day. Alexander Usyk versus Tony Bellew in play for November 10th in London. Just more and more information coming out basically about this fight. Almost 100% official. All we're waiting for is a press release, it seems like. Fantastic fight. Can't wait to see that one. And probably going to be on DAZN, even though it's not announced yet. It's probably going to be on DAZN, Sky Sports in the UK, just for those that are perhaps maybe a little bit curious about that. Alexander Usyk still should be a favorite in that matchup easily. Do I hate on this? Do I support him? I don't know. Terence Crawford, one of my all-time favorite fighters, just being honest, says he sees no obstacles in facing PBC fighters. And this is by Ryan Burton over at Boxing Scene. Ryan Burton, a friend of the show. Shout out to you, Ryan. I'll be honest. Not that because he goes on and says like he doesn't see it, like Bob Arum has no issue making these fights. He wants to negotiate, blah blah blah. Right? He says all this stuff. Top Rank / ESPN, and then over at Showtime with Steven Espinoza. Those entities are directly responsible for being obstacles to great fights happening. They're on record saying that. With deals that HBO and Showtime made for like Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson fights, and the Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather fight, those deals just aren't in the equation anymore, it seems like. So, Crawford, how don't you see like Bob as an obstacle in this? At least in some fashion. He may not be the sole obstacle. I'll give you that. I think Steven Espinoza is an obstacle as well. But to act like Bob Arum is not impeding you fighting the Dannys of the world, the Seans of the world, the Earl Spence of the world, to act like that's not happening, I think is just ignorant of your position. Or maybe you just honestly know that you can't say that. Like, it's obviously that could be a factor. Terence Crawford is completely aware that his promoter is partially responsible for him not getting an Earl Spence fight or a Keith Thurman fight or whatever it may be, right? But he just can't say it. I can see that, possibility, that universe out there. But if you're Terence Crawford, a guy that doesn't talk to media ever, why even say this then? Like, I just wouldn't talk about it. Like, why lie then, Legendary Boxing, Crawford is a loyal employee, independent contractor, like Bradley. I can see that. I'm not going to say that there's been zero issues between Terence Crawford and Bob Arum, because there's always been rumblings of, discontent here and there at times. He has always, I think, been very political about his responses about Bob, to Bob, etc. And even this one is political in a sense. It is what it is. But let me know in the comment section below. Terence Crawford, Earl Spence. Is Bob Arum an obstacle to that fight happening? Is it Steven Espinoza at Showtime saying that he can't allow his fighters to go over to ESPN? Let me know. But let's move on to some sort of finalizations over for the Canelo Alvarez Triple G card. Jaime Munguia versus Brandon Cook on the Canelo Triple G card, as well as David Lemieux versus Gary Spike O'Sullivan. So that card is definitely shaping up to be interesting. Roman Gonzalez is going to be on that card as well. Cecilia Brækhus, I believe, is going to be on that card. So it's definitely shaping up to be an interesting one, to say the least. Can't wait to see Munguia back in action. Even though, let's be honest, it should be a showcase against Brandon Cook, who was supposed to fight Kell Brook, who fell that fight, I believe, due to weight issues. He could not make weight. Moving on to sort of a quick little mention. World Boxing Super Series saying basically that their Season 2 third weight will be announced tomorrow. So sometime tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, we should know what weight class is the third weight class for the World Boxing Super Series on DAZN. I really hope it's minimum weight, which is like Wenheng, Manothane, Knockout, CP Freshmart. That'd be an interesting one to do. Guys that never get TV time, That'd be nice. But some more news as we sort of wrap up boxing. Scott Quigg to return on Saunders vs. Andrade October 20th card. I like that. I think that's a good way to sort of add another name to that event. I believe Cindy Serrano and Katie Taylor will be on that event as well in Boston. So it should be a really fun card and definitely just much better than the first one with Jesse Vargas and Thomas Delorme. Just exponentially a better card. I feel like that's kind of obvious. A couple more points in terms of news. PBC on FS1 this weekend on August 24th. So this Friday will actually show basically the entire event. 90-minute prelims telecast has been added. So that's really good for us because if you can see, a lot of undefeated prospects on this card. From Leon Lawson III to F.A. Ajabi, Antonio Russell, one of the Gary Russell brothers, Caleb Truax making his sort of comeback from the James DeGale rematch, Jamal James on the card, Jamonte Clark, a lot of undefeated. I think it was like 7 or 8. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 undefeated prospects on this card. Should be good to see, sort of like a next-gen card in the UK. But that is it for boxing, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to head over to MMA, sort of wrap that one up, because there's not really much in terms of news over there. Quickly, though, I will talk about the Bellator 204 card, Caldwell versus Lahat. Darren Caldwell winning. What was the fashion again? I'm trying to remember. TKO in the second round. I'm trying to remember what round it was. Caldwell, though, I mean, that should be obvious. Lahat has always sort of been chinny. And Caldwell is legit a talent over there at Bellator. Logan Storley picked up a huge win over AJ Matthews, a great undefeated prospect over there. I believe, maybe Anthony in the chat might correct me. I forget what level of collegiate wrestler he was, but I think he was an All-American, national champion at some point. And obviously the big sort of trending moment over there at Bellator was Ricky Bandejas defeating James Gallagher. James Gallagher being one of the sort of teammates of Conor McGregor, being one of his friends, and honestly, a complete mini-me, even having some of the same tattoos, which, like, I gotta say, like that alone is deserving of that soundbite. But he lost via vicious KO in the first round in a huge upset. If you want to go see the knockout, go over to our Instagram page at Mixed Combat Radio if you want to see that knockout. If you haven't seen it already, vicious one at that. Yeah, salute to Ricky Bandejas, because whenever you do an upset fight like that, almost always goes viral in MMA. Another piece of news, UFC 229, as I said off the top of the show, almost sold out and already the second largest gate in UFC history. Wow. So Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov already on track to really, I think, break records, and that's gonna be interesting to see. What number they do hit per pay-per-view, live gate, attendance, because this event is truly on track to do some numbers. Also, speaking of Khabib versus McGregor, Dana White saying that he's not interested in the super fight between George St. Pierre and the Khabib versus McGregor winner. If you are not into MMA, you don't know that. That is basically confirmation that Dana White is interested in the winner of a Khabib versus McGregor fighting George St. Pierre. So cannot wait for that one. That should be fun. And last piece of news today is Kamaru Usman to serve as the official backup for the UFC 228 Tyron Woodley versus Darren Till main event. I think that's smart. I hope he's getting paid. That's really my main point, because I know this has been a thing that the UFC has been doing a lot more, is having sort of backups for these big fights, these big headliners for a pay-per-view event, so they don't have situations like T.J. Dillashaw versus Joe Soto, etc. And really, I think Kamaru Usman is probably the best guy to have as an alternate at this point. And definitely, if one of those guys were to fall out, he could definitely come in here and serve as a pay-per-view main event with them, in my opinion. And last piece of sort of information, not really news, but it's information. On this day, Salvador Sanchez KOs Wilfredo Gomez, 1981. Shout out to two legends. Go check out this knockout if you have some time. But that is it for all the news, all the information. So call in 323-870-4051 or internationally. If you can, email me at mixedcombatradio@gmail.com. I'll give you that international call-in link. But we're going to head in right to good friend of the show, Mr. Legendary Boxer, who I should probably get an intro for him because he calls in all the time. Legendary Boxer, how you doing?
What's going on, man? Did you just read on Boxing Scene? The Friday card with PBC, they're going to air the whole 3-hour undercard, too. That's kind of like what the zone is. You know, Eddie's been bragging about we're going to be airing all undercards. I guess PBC and Fox are going to start doing that, too, now. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I did talk
4 hours
about
of boxing on Friday.
I did talk about that. I think it's awesome, especially with the amount of prospects on that card. There's 8 undefeated prospects on that card. Sort of like the UK Next Gen cards with a bunch of prospects that they feature.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. I like it. It's on a Friday, too. It won't compete with any of the Saturday events. There's a UFC event on Saturday. There's more boxing on Saturday. I think it's smart.
Did you watch the Saturday card with the top rank?
Yes, I did.
What do you think, objectively, which card is better, that Saturday card or this Friday coming up card by PBC?
Oh, definitely this Friday's
Top to
card.
bottom.
Definitely this Friday's card.
Right?
Yeah, that top rank
And
card.
remember,
that
the
top rank card was
that
atrocious.
PBC got. Go ahead.
I said that top rank card was atrocious.
Remember when PBC was on ESPN and I guess they got kicked out or whatever, they had a dispute before all their dates ended. People were like, oh, ESPN kicked them off because they gave them such shitty cards. Remember the kind of cards PBC used to put on ESPN and the kind of shit we're getting now? Isn't it like night and day?
I can only honestly remember the Thurman Collazo because that was the first one. I don't remember their full schedule on ESPN, so I'm not going to say.
Wasn't it like Leo Mara's one was on ESPN?
No, I don't think you're right about
or
that.
Or like Danny Guerrero, maybe.
I think you might be right. I think you might be right about Danny Guerrero. I think Danny was on there for one of his fights. I forget which one it was. But I think like all of those those PBC guys, they all had one fight on ESPN. So I think like Adrian Broner had one on ESPN. I think Sean Porter had one.
Had one too.
Yep.
And did you see how Joe Tessitore, your boy, he was yelling when fucking Jennings dropped that social worker guy? He was acting like he won a title, man. These guys are going so overboard now that the ESPN and Top Rank have a deal. Because I remember his commentary so like crystal clear when it used to be PBC fights. He used to be fucking shitting all over them. Oh, this is not a good fight. This is not a great entertainment. He never says that anymore. Like, he's gotten orders. Because he saw, because Teddy Atlas was overly critical. He got shipped out. So he knows he can't fucking talk shit about Aram's fighter or he'll be kicked out soon.
No, Teddy does. Teddy does shows, actually. I don't know if you know that. He does some of the international ones. He does.
Yeah,
he did the Tevin Farmer Billy Dib one. He did the Tevin Farmer Billy Dib one. But I'll say this. I think, obviously, when PBC was with ESPN was not putting any money into it. So why would they have a monetary incentive to not criticize and be PC about the content with PBC? They didn't have any monetary incentive to do that.
But they should have been nicer to fucking PBC. Heyman took $50 million out of his own pocket and gave it to them, and they were treating him like fucking dirt. So it just shows you.
I wouldn't say that though. I mean, I think you're being. I think you're being hyperbolic to say that ESPN treated them like dirt. I think I need to see evidence of that. I don't have any in front of me, so I'm not going to speak on that.
I mean, like compared to Aram, the fucking sweet talking and all the fucking ass kissing they get on every broadcast. That's what I'm saying. But I understand. But I don't know, man. Aram has got a long-term connection with ESPN, and ESPN. I don't want to be too like controversial, but ESPN is like a 99% Jewish-run company. And
oh, come on, man! Stop! Come on, man! We can't. Come on! You're gonna be anti-Semitic here? Like really? Like that's where we decided to go, Legendary Boxer. I can't even deal with that. We're moving on. I'm sorry. I'm just not gonna even address that because that's just fucking ridiculous. Yeah. Anyone else wants to call in? 323-870-4051. I see Santiago in there. He hasn't pressed 1. But yeah, I think Ellie, I think, has a really great point. Some people are more interested in supporting a promoter than the boxers. Yeah, exactly. Again, promoters are promoters. You know, like they're gonna rip off the consumer. That is their job. You know, it's to make up conspiracy theories about Zionism and how there's a Jewish conspiracy for Bob Arum against Al Heyman. Like, think about how fucking ridiculous you sound. You sound like an Alex Jones stupid motherfucker. I hope you know that. Legendary Box saying it's not a conspiracy. Yes, it is. You implied that there is favoritism from ESPN to Bob Arum instead of Al Heyman because of Jewish people. Do you understand how fucking stupid you are? Really? Like, Nigel, that was great. But we're moving on. We're wrapping it up. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Legendary Boxer, you can't call in anymore if you're gonna peddle that shit. No Alex Jones conspiracy theories here. No flat earthers. Okay. Like, it is what it is. Top Rank has been a staple in boxing for 60 years. They've been with ESPN numerous times. Maybe that's why they have a relationship with ESPN again. There was one before. Al Heyman was putting out his content in other platforms. Is what it is. You know. Anthony saying it's like your Twitter page came to life. Yo, it's ridiculous. Anthony saying I'm here for all the smoke. Look, again. To say that there is a lot of Jewish people in the entertainment industry is like, yeah, that's an obvious thing to say. But then to go on top of that and say, well, then that is the reason why this guy is getting favoritism over the other, then that is a conspiracy theory. That is the definition of a conspiracy theory. And then on top of that is anti-Semitic, which is even worse. Wow, it's ridiculous, man. And you know what? You just know there's a lot of people out there that think this way. And it's unfortunate. It is what it is. I'm at the Hipster Hunter. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm sorry for anti-Semitic dumbasses that follow the sport. Have a great day.